Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback Chat. Thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about managerial textbooks. That's the sort of literature that's in some business schools, for MBA or business management degree is compulsory. Now, I haven't looked at these books for quite some time, or what the current crop is. If I look back to the sort of books that used to be by Peter Drucker, for example, The Effective Executive, and that crop of books, or books from that era and shortly after it, which really before my time. I suppose I would have still probably been in primary school when they first came out. But the way the books are written, they were talking to adults, and it was presumed that they were talking to adult men that would be taking responsibility, that very keenly accepted those responsibilities and wanted to act on them, to do a good job, to get the results, to be high achievers, and so on and so forth. But the adults who were prepared to accept responsibility for their own actions, that was almost it was just pre-assumed. How else could you do? No one could be a manager unless they behaved like an adult and accepted responsibility. Now, for whatever imperfections the world may have had then, and it had them, that was something that I noticed. Not that there weren't irresponsible people. I think there were, and there always will be. But the idea that you accepted responsibility and you tried to improve, learn from your mistakes, do better, and not make those mistakes again, but accepting the responsibility in an adult way. That was just how things were. Nobody doubted it. I certainly didn't. It was and it was how I was trained to perceive managerial sort of methods and attitudes and views. There are other things like certainly I was trained to, quite apart from accepting responsibility, to say, well, all the people that report to you, have you made sure they have all the tools, as in physical tools, that they need to do the job? Have you made sure that they have adequate training and experience? What are you doing to make sure they're better able to do their jobs? Things like that. And you don't really see that anymore. People are more concerned with policing how others use pronouns than they would be in helping them how to do the job. Anyway, that was the sort of management literature and the reading material back then. Now, I casually put my hands just recently on a book which is a compulsory reading in a number of MBA courses. In fact, many of them around the United States and the Western world. And in its time, which was 15, 16 years ago, in its time, it was a bestseller. Now, it's been updated since and has stayed sort of on the bestseller list. So it's certainly been around for, well, I think it was published again about 15 years ago, and I think even like a few years ago, it was still on the bestseller list. So it's still current and contemporary and so on. But but anyway, I picked the book up and was leafing through it, and I was amazed that this could pass for a textbook or there'd be compulsory reading. What? The way it was phrased and the way it was done in very girly, very junior school format of. Like Spot the dog, the dog Spot what the dog did, the cat sat on the mat, and then it's done almost in that sort of style, and it's a very feminist way of looking at it, written by a gay guy, a very feminist way of looking at things, so that every CEO, so they do it in an anecdotal thing. So Billie Jean noticed her team was not operating as cohesively as she would like. Cohesive isn't explained. What as much as you like. I mean, what does it mean? Does that mean a lot of cohesion? A little bit? Like there was no sort of analysis as in any attempt at scientific or objective explanation of anything. Billie Jean feels that the team isn't supporting her, so she got them in and had a meeting, and but Jane said that Billie Jean was right, but Billy Bob said, who is white and straight. Billy Bob said he didn't think so. But Billie Jean wasn't going to accept the disruptive influence of Billy Bob and his negative vibes in the meeting, and she could tell he was upsetting the women in the room by his overpowering fascist nature. And you go, what? This is a fucking textbook? You got to be kidding me! So I went through to other sections, and it had the same sort of thing, depicting a powerful, strong woman who knows best, how she knows best, um, and other women in the team that were keen to. Follow this woman CEO's lead, but the men weren't, and they were really the cause of the problem. The solution is, these men have to change their attitude, or they got to go. They've got to accept that it's now a play school game, and that's how we're going to manage this. It's going to be a play school committee run by girlies with snotty little attitudes about their moral superiority. And if you don't go along with it, you're the problem, buddy. And there's a few appraisals and maybe a bit of send them off to an education camp to learn to show more respect to people, and all this sort of stuff. Now, it was very vague on what sins they'd committed, but they just didn't have the right attitude. The girls had the right attitude, but the men didn't. Now, there was some gay guys and there's a black guy and this sort of thing. They were okay. They were willing to come across to accept the little play school girly attitude of how things were done. It's just those damn straight white males. Nothing for it. They got to go. They got to go until they accept their evil fascist Nazi fucking wickedness. Until they accept that and humbly get on their knees, beg forgiveness from these morally superior women and gay people and black people. Until they do that, accept their internal fucking misogyny, their racism, their Nazism, their fucking bigotry. Until they accept all that and make amends, they're just not really useful in the managerial team. And that's just how it is. Fortunately, they've got female CEOs showing great forbearance. In spite of these female CEOs having a colossal chasm of moral superiority to these straight white males, they are being shown some forbearance. And if they mend their ways and grovel accordingly, well, maybe they'll be let back into the little dollhouse and they'll be allowed to play as well with the toys. But look, they better get onto it quick. Otherwise, there'll be just no place for them in this new managerial society, this new managerial class. Now, you can see the globalist attitudes actually through the text here of how to control and nudge and shame and blame and this sort of thing. But in no stage do any of these women or the gay guys or black guys, in no stage do any of these people accept responsibility. Anything goes wrong must still be the fault of the straight white males. They must accept responsibility, but no one else can. And if there is, they don't call it responsibility. If it's for example, the CEOs, the female CEOs, they're faced with a challenge that they must meet because they're strong, stunning, and brave, meeting the challenge. But if it's the straight white guy, then he has to take total responsibility. So it's interesting how they still have this idea of responsibility still shouldn't be accepted by people who are morally pure and morally superior. Responsibility still has to be taken by their moral inferiors. But it stunned me of just how the text, how it was laid out. It was talking to young schoolgirls. It was as if he was talking directly to 10-year-old schoolgirls, and this passes for an MBA, executive business management reading material these days. I mean, we are all fucked, seriously. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.